Still not streaming. All right, so this is take two. We should be fine without the echoing. Apologies for that. Technology, what can I say? We're just going to go live on Instagram. We should be live on Facebook and YouTube as well. Today's topic, in fact, I'll let Sonia take over from here.
Hello. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about generational wealth and mindset. So it's just going to be more for conversation. And also, we hope that you guys engage with us as well. Just be talking about what generational wealth really is. A lot of people tend to say that they want to create generational wealth, but do they really know where to begin to create generational wealth? Some people have this definition of what wealth is, but it's not really accurate to what wealth actually is. So, yeah, just gonna have a conversation with Richard regarding that. So
That's a good point about the wealth. The wealth point. I think I've got two sayings about wealth. Obviously, the acronym, I say obviously, once, in terms of once was a trust, once actually stands for own nothing, control everything, which is the secret to wealth in this kind of dispensation that we're in terms of law and capitalism and everything else like that. But the other side of it is wealth is not how much money you make at the end of the day, it's how much you keep. So we working on those two definitions, generational wealth really kind of comes to the fore. And that's the focus of what we do. Yeah, we target business owners and we believe in the family. But ultimately, why we do what we do is to provide generational wealth for those who are keen to A, learn about it, and B, implement it and stop any historical challenges with regards to finance, and then obviously start as we mean to go on and pass the baton down to our future generation, really and truly. So yeah, that's the way we're going from that.
So usually when you ask someone what wealth is, they say just having lots of money, having cars, having properties, having houses, just coming from like a wealthy family that has money, that has businesses, that has shares, that has investments.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Well, those are methods of accumulating wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, property is definitely good. Owning businesses through stocks and shares, it's proven over hundreds of years or generations. So yeah, land, etc. Accumulation of those assets does help towards wealth. Definitely, no two ways about that. But I think my concern is not the accumulation of wealth. Our focus is on the preservation of that wealth. So it's two different areas, I guess, in terms of looking for. Most people are focused on the generation of it, but how do you pass it on? What's the exit plan? I think most people don't really think about that till it's too late, and that's why the taxpayers are rubbing their hands and making a lot of money right now through, I guess, that ignorance of how to pass on that wealth and protect it. That's the focus. So preservation of wealth is our focus as opposed to generating it going forward.
So then, how do you preserve wealth?
The first thing is just understanding what the exit. When I say exit plan, how do you intend to gift or leave? Or what is the plan? You accumulate all this wealth, great. You have a good life, but then what's the plan afterwards? Because we're not going to be on this earth forever. Are you going to give it all to charity? Are you going to pass it down to your loved ones? If the intention is to build it up to give your loved ones a good start, well, then how do you plan to transfer that across? So that's where we start thinking about the next generation and future generations of wealth. I've answered your question. I know I can waffle.
It's all right. But yeah, so what kind of, let's say, mindset or steps should someone start to adapt when they want to create generational wealth for their children and grandchildren, or even their loved ones?
I say it's important to, when you look at the wealthy, I'm talking about literally those families who are been passed on wealth for generations. They have assigned, or I'd call it like a custodian to wealth. There's someone or a group of people in the family whose sole purpose is to make sure the family wealth is transferred and distributed to the next generation or future generations efficiently. So let's say Duke of Westminster, you don't have an empire like that over 300 years and not pay a penny of inheritance tax unless there's a plan, ongoing plan, reviewing the family wealth, making sure that the next generation and future generations are catered for. It's not an accident that that happens. And so ultimately, as you get wealthier, who is that person responsible to make sure that the wealth is passed on to the next generation? Because a lot of challenges with family wealth is, do the children want to continue in the family business? They may not want to. If they are involved in the family business, what are the dynamics sort of like? And we get into the area of family wealth and family planning, which is another discussion. But ultimately, one of the biggest topics is based on that, the dynamics of the family. Who is responsible for channeling that wealth to grandchildren, great grandchildren, etc., etc. There must be someone's it must be someone's role. And so the mindset is not about, well, what can I do today? I can live a great life today and tomorrow. Don't care about the future. It should be more so, okay, well, we understand that our wealth is accumulating. How do we ring fence it? How do we protect it? So it's not lost sideways to situations like, I don't know, bankruptcy or lawsuits or some kind of financial attack, whether that's from the government or otherwise. And then the other side of it is, well, if family makes a mistake, so could be, marriages, 50% of marriages actually last. So if someone marries into the family, and it could be, historically, marriages were for transferring of wealth to maintain the family line, right? So even look at history and royalty, it was marrying to make sure wealth was transferred. So there's such a thing as predatory marriages, right? People might just want to get in the family because of the wealth. How do you protect that? Then if you've got people involved in the business, do you distribute shares or wealth to them? If the younger generation want to get involved in the business or any kind of philanthropic situations of gifting to charity or being involved in a mission of some form, well, we talk about whether it's ethical, sustainable governance, international situations. Is it got a right public image? Is it fit the I guess the context of what the family is going, what they're believing? All these things are important, and this needs to be planned, and all that is part of transferring the wealth and doing it without some kind of financial attack, either high taxes, that's still a financial attack, sudden change in laws, changes in the dynamics of the family, if there's a disagreement or breakup or whatever it might be, illness, sickness, mental capacity, all of that type of stuff needs to be planned for, so we understand well, what is the sole purpose? How do we pass it down from generation to generation and protect it? How is the business, if we talk about business, going to transition from generation to generation, and how's that wealth going to be preserved, as well as the brand, as well as what the family does with that business, etc. So you look at big brands globally, it's not an accident that they're doing what they're doing. There's a plan for it. The family, they may be coming from a family bloodline that historically has come from that wealth or that business, but they may not be directly involved. There could be a team running that business, preserving that business, and the wealth is still being protected. So heirs and future heirs can still enjoy the family wealth. There's not going to be any loss unnecessarily or through accident. It needs to be planned. It needs to be risk mitigation needs to take place, and analysis. All that type of stuff is important. And so, obviously, I'm talking on a bigger scale, but from a regular family who are building wealth, what do we need to do? What's the best way? And I say, it's good to try and understand step 10 before you even start step 1. We get excited about starting businesses. Most businesses fail because a leader is not equipped to run the business properly. So one of the things that leader should be doing, besides understanding how to run the business, is what's the exit plan? What does the business look like? What's the design? Is it a lifestyle business? Is it one that's going to be carrying on for future generations? And if that is the case, who's on your team to help you understand how to transfer that wealth to the next generation and for future generations? And even for personal wealth, what are you doing about that? to protect against again financial attack.
Okay, well, thank you.
Mhm.
So, what kind of documents or what is needed in order to create generational wealth,
Well,
would you say?
that's a wide question, I guess. It depends on the scenario situations. I think the bottom line is definitely everyone should have an adequate will,
Mhm.
which should be reviewed relatively frequently because circumstances change as people get on in life. You might start off young and think, "Well, I don't have that much money," or you could be a young Gen Z making selling your business for 9 figures. Two complete different dynamics, but you need a will for certain
Yeah.
for your personal wealth. And then you need to have plans, again, depending on where you are and where the business is at any given time, reviewing that as the wealth accumulates. And there's certain things that can be done. So rather than getting into the minutiae of that, I think, yes, you just need adequate planning and the right team beside you to make sure that the right tools are in place. So, for example, if you're thinking about getting married, are the right tools in place? Um, in line with law in the UK, because Europe has different standards of law in terms of like prenups and postnups and things like that. If you're not married and you're living with someone, again, having a financial arrangement, what are the rules of engagement if things do not work out? Okay, let's arrange those terms when things are good, not having to spend loads of money trying to mediate because we can't talk to each other in an amicable and professional way. So that's true in business and true in personal life. All right, so that also is a very powerful tool and concept for producing generational wealth, and for the family, even from the children are young. Like what, especially if they're born into wealth, because they say that, well, there's different sayings. Wealth lasts from shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves for 3 generations. There's other sayings that mimic that type of scenario, but literally, wealth tends to stay for 3 generations. So the first generation gets wealthy, the second generation enjoys the spoils, and they're not working hard to maintain it. The third generation loses it all and just have to start all over again. And so the mindset of the generation who are born into wealth is normally different to the mindset of the generation who's worked hard to build it in the first place. How do you align that? What do we need to put in place so the family maintains sober? There's sobriety for every generation. They understand that it's a business, and so the mindset is one that should require a standard of or an attitude of producing wealth every single generation. How is it maintained? And that's a mindset that needs to be built from the ground up in the family lines. Yeah.
Yeah. So with trust, did trust come into play with that then?
Can do, definitely. Especially historical, like old trusts. There's oldest families with we call old money,
Mhm.
where trusts are managed, finances or money is managed. But normally they have multiple trusts, and even now today, if it's warranted, this trust is very powerful and can definitely be a way to move forward, without a doubt.
Okay, so just to be, if I could give you a scenario,
Yeah.
um, so let's say there's this man, he wants to create generational wealth. He's taken basically most of the steps to create generational wealth, but his
Uh-huh.
son goes through a
Yeah.
divorce. Just because I know it can be complicated and different for each,
Yeah.
scenario. But what type of steps would he kind of have to take to ensure that if that divorce happens, that his wealth won't go to his ex-partner, his son's ex-partner?
So yeah, it's a really great question. I mean, typically the planning should be done well in advance. So let's say you want to buy a house, and it's a matrimonial. Well, the intention is to buy a house, so the son and the new bride, shall we say, want to live in there. Um, and the father's like, well, how do I protect the family money? Then you could set up a trust. That trust could act like a bank and maybe lend the funds to the son. Um, there's something called nuptial settlement in the UK that needs to be looked into. So where's the preservation of wealth from that point of view, but the trust is doing something. Yeah, so that's one idea, or it could be normally having like multiple trusts. So just like I guess you got dominoes that can fall. If you attack one trust, doesn't mean you can attack all the trusts. So a trust could be set up specifically for the family home, with the mentality that okay, well, if half the wealth is lost, it's not all of the family wealth. It's just specific to that property or that asset, for example. So planning could be done
Mhm.
well in advance, knowing that it's going to preserve the wealth. It could just be an outright gift is made by the father to the children, knowing that okay, well, whatever happens, happens, but it's not going to affect the overall wealth for the family.
Mhm.
It was a gift. It's made in love, with the intention that it's going to stay forever, but it's not going to affect the overall family wealth. Um, it's just a drop in the ocean, so to speak. Just depends on every individual and circumstance, and the planning would affect that based on the situation.
Okay. Well, thank you.
No, 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 that's fine.
um, I just wanted to touch on financial literacy.
Yeah.
Just in regards to that area, I feel like there's a lot of people want to, build wealth, do this and do that,
Mm.
but they're not very financially literate.
Okay.
Yeah, what would you have to say surrounding that area?
No, that's a really powerful question. We want to depend on schools to teach financial literacy. I think it's down to the family to raise our children
Mhm.
to be financially literate and financially savvy, which means that we must take the onus on ourselves to first learn, demonstrate, because there's a term, I don't care about the PC element, but monkey see, monkey do. Yeah. So if someone sees it, if your children sees what you're doing, as opposed to you telling them, they're going to ideally mimic what you're going to do. So if they can see wealth being created, as opposed to a mentality of consumerism and um, you know materialism, shall I say, and so we align wealth with name brands, or we align wealth with material goods, as opposed to um, wealth having time to do what you want to do, or the opportunity to do what you need to do without having to think or consult your bank account or consult a credit card. Um, that's financial literacy, understanding leverage, understanding relationships, understanding banking and how banks works, because schools will not teach you that. Understanding the difference between credit and money. What does money really mean? What is currency? All these terms that we take for granted, or we commingle, when they actually are very different.
Mm.
um, I think it's by design, to be honest with you, why I think people are illiterate financially. And so you have to really go against the grain to make sure that you're putting yourself in a position to know what to do. But it's not impossible. Everything's in plain sight, shall we say. So if those who want to know, you can definitely go and find out. It's not like
Mhm.
impossible.
Mhm.
It's a Google search, yeah, or the chat GPT, shall we say. It's not impossible to find out. So ultimately it's making the decision that you don't want to remain ignorant about anything, especially in the area of finance and money. I think that's the first thing to decide. Don't blame history. Don't blame family members. Don't blame family circumstances. Let's be responsible. Okay, that's the past of the past, but we are all in control of our future and our destiny based on our decision making. Um, so, in other words, I have a victim mindset, have a mindset of a winner, and of a hero. We all have a choice, not excuses, because then what's the point of making excuses?
Mhm.
It is what it is, whatever the situation is, and it can definitely be changed.
Mhm.
There's no two ways about that.
Okay. And probably just to touch on, let's say, financial literacy and
Yeah.
generational wealth
Uh-huh.
within the Black community.
Okay.
Do you have anything to touch on that area?
I'm just going to say this. I think, um, all things are possible. Okay. And the narrative needs to be changed ultimately. Okay. Because if I start a conversation, we're not going to finish. We'll be here all night. And I think every community has their challenge.
Mhm.
For us, it's about trust. And we can start a conversation with why is there no trust in the community, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go there. But ultimately, that's where it needs to start. And then again, taking the onus to find out what we need to do. And then, and I see it happening. It's not even like it's not happening. I see it happening. It just needs to be on a larger scale. You know, lots of people who are educating. There's lots of people who are on a mission to really change the narrative. Lots of people I'm seeing really going for it and making sure that literacy, whether they're publishing books or they're doing the same thing as us on socials, there's lots of generals out there doing some amazing work for people in general and for the Black community per se as well. So it's not about bashing anybody. It's about, but as a generalization in the UK, I think we just need to all wake up as soon as possible and take those steps and not make excuses. That's just my two pence worth. And I think it's more of a debate to have with more people on that. We a better conversation, I think, to get feedback. But ultimately, from looking from the outside in, so to speak, and from personal experiences, let's not make our history. It's easy to make our history an excuse, and I'm not saying that it doesn't make things harder. Certainly not making things harder, but we can still do it. There's people ahead of us blazing trails, so there's no excuse, right? Let's just make it work. That's my two pence worth on that.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Richard.
No, that's all right.
I think we've come to the end of the live.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was just a nice discussion on generational wealth.
Yeah,
Very insightful.
it is. I think it's important that we all understand what it is and strive towards in whatever capacity we can do to make it happen. And we just start where we are. Let's not compare ourselves to other people. We are our own competition. Let's get rid of any kind of imposter syndrome. Let's get rid of we call it keeping up with the Joneses. And let's make it our mission to understand what's going on. Every decision that we make, find a mentor, find someone to speak to who you trust that will give you you believe the right guidance. Educate yourself. There's books upon books upon books that you can read, and get out of TV or social media and dopamine fixes on socials. That's not going to benefit you. And educate ourselves. So the information is already there. We just got to make the decision to bury ourselves in it so that we can start to rise up and take things forward. Despite the challenges, can definitely make it happen.
Thank you, Richard.
No worries. Thank you, Sonia.
It's all right.
And check out our socials and our links. Should be hopefully somewhere available on whatever platform you're watching this. If you've got any questions or feedback, comments on what anything else said, we welcome it, no problem. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.
Yeah, we are live every Tuesday.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. So every Tuesday in the evenings, we should be live. So please join us.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks, Sonia.